Black does not mean African. And if you don't believe me, go Google it right now. Type in, does Black equal African? Google hits you with the real, no does not universally equal African, because Black is a racial category, a social construct based on how people look, skin tone, phenotype, not origin, not culture, not lineage. Meanwhile, African is a geographic label. It means from the continent of Africa, which, by the way, includes white Africans, Arab Africans, and folks who don't even identify as Black. So how does that work? It works because race is made up. It's a box they check, not a bond we share. See, they told us race was real to divide us, but then tried to flip it and say Black means we're all the same. Nah. Black is a look. Lineage is a life. Foundational Black Americans are not defined by race alone. We are defined by roots. Foundational means our ancestors were already here before the founding of the United States as it's known today. Not immigrants, not visitors, founders. Our bloodlines stretch back to the 1500s, 1600s, before 1776 was even a date worth remembering. Some of us were already here as Black indigenous peoples of Turtle Island, nations like Yamasee, Creek, Gullah Geechee, and Choctaw. Others were forced here through slavery, but not in the numbers they love to push. Less than 5% of the transatlantic slave trade came to what is now the U.S., which means a lot of us are not African by ancestry, but by assumption. Even those of us who do have some African roots, we evolved into something new. We forged a culture in the furnace of captivity, resistance, and brilliance that no other Black group on earth has lived through. We became foundational Black Americans. We are the children of cotton pickers and code breakers, of civil rights warriors and jazz architects, of enslaved mothers who nursed presidents and freedom fighters who burned plantations to the ground. Our identity is not just American. It is America's foundation. And don't get it twisted, we are ethnically diverse within FBA. We are Creole, we are Gullah, we are Southern Gothic and Northern Hustle, light skin to deep dark, straight hair to coily crowns. Our diversity doesn't erase our lineage, it proves it. And yet, every time we claim our uniqueness, here comes the fake unity patrol. But aren't we all Black? But y'all being divisive. But we come from the same place. Really? Is it divisive when Jewish Americans say they're not Italian? Is it divisive when Irish Americans trace their lineage separate from Polish or German ones? Is it divisive when Afro-Latinos want to be called Afro-Latinos? So why is it a problem when we say we are not just Black, we are FBA? Let me tell you why. Because the moment we name ourselves, the tethers panic. Because if we're foundational, that means some of y'all are not. If we have claim, y'all might have to step back. If we draw a line, y'all might get left off the list. And here's the gag. We're not doing this to exclude you. We're doing this to protect what's ours. Because every time we let Black get used like a universal key, we lose access to our own house. Reparations, they water it down. Cultural credit, they remix it. History, they erase it under Black and brown, people of color, African diaspora. Nah, we're done being the unclaimed genius behind the scenes. We are foundational Black Americans. And that name ain't for fashion, it's for function. It marks a people who were here before the Constitution, before Ellis Island, before African Independence Day, before border walls. A people who had no home to run back to. So we built one right here. You don't have to like it, but you will respect it. Because while you trying to group us into a rainbow of struggle, we're over here tracing our roots through the soil of Turtle Island, pulling up deeds, names, freedmen rolls, and unbroken chains. So don't tell us we're all the same. We look alike, but we ain't alike. And the sooner y'all get that, the sooner we can stop fighting over race and start reclaiming lineage.
Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, Africans. I hope you're faring well where you are. And if you're not faring well, please fare well where you are. Now, there's a certain proverb from Mississippi. Mississippi is one of the counties that we have in the United States of America. It goes this way. If you don't know where you come from, you'll always be lost in where you are. So you don't know where you're coming from, you'll always be lost because you don't have a reference point, right? And today's video is likened to this very proverb in this way. You see, The term African American has long been used to define black people in the United States of America. It is a term that carries both pride and pain, born from centuries of displacement and resistance. Yet, as history and anthropology reveal, not all black Americans are African Americans in the historical sense of the transatlantic slave trade. The phrase itself may present a geopolitical confusion, one that flattens the vast diversity of black identities into a single narrative of African enslavement and migration. You know, this is very well ignoring the presence of indigenous black peoples and ancient diasporas across the globe. Yeah. So not all black people are African Americans, and we have this narrative where all the black Americans have been bundled into the concept that they arrived there through the transatlantic slave trade. No, that's not the case. And in today's video, we are going to discover that. Now, I want us to watch this video, listen to it. I shall get back in the end of the video where we shall also have a deep critical analysis with a touch of deconstruction. Let's dive in.
You black, but are you foundational? You mixed, but are you biracial or bi-ethnic? Because we need to stop confusing skin tone with lineage. Let's get the definition straight first, since folks love to remix them to fit the narrative. Biracial means your parents come from two different racial categories. For example, a black parent and a white parent. You're racially mixed. Cool. Bi-ethnic means both of your parents are the same race, but from different ethnic groups. Like one parent is foundational Black American, and the other is Nigerian, Jamaican, Haitian. Still Black, just not the same culture, not the same lineage. Now let's talk about FBA. FBA means one or both of your parents descend from the Black people who were here before America was officially America. That includes enslaved Africans, freedmen, Gullah, Creoles, Black indigenous nations, all the people who bled, built, and birthed this country from within its borders. So yes, if you got one FBA parent, you got the claim. Whether you're biracial or bi-ethnic, if your line runs through FBA ancestry, you're in. But don't get it twisted. Just because you have the blood doesn't mean you carry the culture. Because lineage is inherited, but identity is shaped. And most of that shaping happens in the home. If your mama's FBA, you were probably raised on don't touch nothing in that store. You know about hot combs on the stove, sugar and grits, that unspoken tension in a room full of elders. That's culture. That's not optional. But if neither of your parents are FBA, even if you were born here, you're not FBA. You're a Black person living in America. That's a nationality. FBA is an ethnic claim, not a geographic location. And this is where a lot of confusion comes in, because people assume Black American means anybody Black in America. But that erases who we are. We're not just Black, we're not just American. We're foundational. That means our ancestors fought in every war, paid taxes to a country that didn't see them as human, created entire genres of music, foodways, spiritual systems, and social codes that shaped this nation. Whether free or enslaved, we were here before the flag, the Constitution, and the border walls. So when somebody says, well, I'm Black too, cool. But are your people of this soil? Were they on the plantations and the protest lines? Were they fighting voter suppression in Selma and generational redlining in Compton? Or did they come here after the doors were kicked open by our sacrifice? Because Blackness is a wide spectrum, but FBA is a specific lineage. If you're bi-ethnic, FBA plus non-FBA, that matters. You carry two different Black cultures, you carry complexity. Respect that. Same with biracial FBA. You got one Black parent who's foundational, you got the claim. But don't erase your non-FBA parent either, and act like you were shaped by a culture you only halfway understand. This ain't about exclusion. This is about accuracy. You can be Black and not be FBA. You can be mixed and still be part of this lineage if that blood runs through us. But don't just call yourself FBA because you think it sounds good. Call it when you live it, when you honor it, when you carry it with clarity. So next time somebody asks, are you FBA? Tell the truth. Not just where you live, but where your people are buried. They say it's a myth. They say it's hate. But when you trace the science in the scriptures, what you find is a pattern too precise to ignore. 6,000 years ago, according to the teachings of the Nation of Islam, a brilliant but misguided black scientist named Yaqub began an experiment on the island of Patmos. Not just a science experiment, an agenda. He wanted to engineer a new people by isolating the lightest traits in our gene pool, generation after generation. Through selective breeding, he began grafting out the dominant traits of original people: melanin, compassion, connection to the divine, and left behind something else. A being with little pigmentation, recessive traits, aggression hardwired through scarcity. And while they laugh at the idea, science quietly confirms what they mock. Recessive traits only rise in isolated populations. That's not mythology, that's evolutionary biology. It's called a genetic bottleneck. European populations, especially those descending from the last ice age, are genetically linked to a very small founder group, likely less than 200 individuals. And when you isolate a population, what happens? The weaker traits that would normally be masked by dominant melanin, start to express: red hair, pale skin, blue eyes, and lower levels of melanin come with consequences: weaker immune function, inability to absorb sunlight, higher rates of neurodegenerative disease. That's not opinion, that's peer-reviewed. The MC1R gene governs melanin expression. In melanin-dominant people, it regulates deep pigmentation, UV protection, and energy conversion. In melanin-recessive populations, mutations in this gene result in depigmentation, traits that make the body vulnerable in sunlight, mentally unstable under pressure, and cut off from vibrational memory. And here's the part that connects the science to the soul. Once Yaqub's creation reached critical mass, they were exiled into the caves of West Asia, what we now call Europe. There, in the cold, dark isolation of mountains and ice, survival wasn't about harmony, it was about domination. Over thousands of years, a culture emerged that saw nature not as divine, but as something to conquer. Scarcity bred greed. Sunlight became an enemy. And from this cauldron, the false systems we now live under were born. White supremacy, colonization, capitalism, it all traces back to a cold world mindset forged in those caves. So when they ask, where do white people really come from? The answer isn't just Europe, it's grafted mutation. It's selective survival. It's a legacy of trying to escape the sun and the truth that lives in it. And that's why they still try to block it out, why they dim the skies with chemicals, why they can't exist without stealing our rhythm, our melanin, our memory. But what they forget is this: no matter how far you run from the sun, you can't escape the truth written in your origin. And now that truth is right. Y'all love playing American when the storm hits, but the rest of the year, you can't stand us. A Category 5 hurricane touches down, and suddenly everybody's screaming, "I'm African American." Nah, you Bahamian last week, you Jamaican last month. Now you're claiming foundational Black American just to get on a FEMA flight? That's the hypocrisy I'm talking about. Let a hurricane hit Kingston or Freeport, and the first people you calling are the same Black Americans you throw shade at online. The same people you mock for being too Western, too lost, too loud. But now you need rescue? Now you tagging the embassy, begging for US military airlift like we family? Nah, you ain't one of us. You ain't from Mississippi. You ain't from Alabama. You didn't come from folks who never left. You didn't come from people who stayed through the storm called America. We're not just Black in America. We're of this place, born of it, bred in the crucible. Our lineage is soaked into the soil like our blood. And y'all know that. That's why when it benefits you, you become us. But when it's time to speak up for us, you vanish. Where were all these Caribbean voices when we said reparations are for FBA only? Where were y'all when we drew a line around our lineage and said, this ain't for everybody with melanin? Y'all got mad, called us divisive, said we was breaking up the diaspora. But the truth is, y'all only believe in unity when it means using us. Y'all want access, not accountability. You want the benefits of FBA struggle without the burden. You want the clout without the chain, the check without the cotton. You want to claim us, but never defend us. And every single time, it's the same damn playbook. Y'all pull out the We All Black card like it's a universal passport. But soon as the flight lands and your bags touch American soil, you flip the script. Start clowning us for being cultureless. Start mocking our food, our music, our slang. Start putting your flags in our parades, your songs in our cookouts, your face in our struggle. You tell us to go back to Africa and then beg to be disaster flips your island upside down. Y'all hate us, but you mimic everything we do. You remix our pain into your soundtracks. You wear our trauma like a costume. You take our language, our fight, our movements, our energy, and turn it into content. And we see it now, clear as day. That Bahamian woman said she was African American just to get rescued. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't confusion. That was strategy. She knew what that name meant. She knew what came with it. And that proves everything we've been saying. FBA is a lineage with weight, with legacy, with receipts. We are not a flavor of black. We are not a default diaspora bucket. We are not one big happy family just because we share a hue. Because when it's time to die in wars, work in factories, survive Jim Crow, march in Selma, rebuild after Katrina, and pay taxes into the very systems that come to save you, that's us. So don't call yourself FBA when the water rises. Don't claim our identity when yours doesn't come with insurance. Don't morph into a foundational Black American when it's convenient. Because being FBA ain't a costume, it ain't a shortcut, it ain't a storm shelter, it's a birthright. We don't flee when the winds blow, we stand in it. And y'all better put some... Caribbeans, let's stop pretending you built this house. You just moved in and started rearranging the furniture. You're on TikTok right now trying to tell foundational Black Americans who we are, while the man who put FBA on the digital map, Tariq Nasheed, is trending across every panel, every For You page, and every stitch. And you can't stand it. You can't stand that he can give one nod, one pat on the back to an FBA creator, and the whole algorithm shakes. You can't stand that his approval carries more weight in our culture than 1,000 comments from your We All Indians Now crew. You call him our leader because it's easier to hate a face than admit you're jealous of a foundation. He didn't make us. He reflected us. That's what burns you. Because you realize you can't destiny swap into our dirt. You can't archive hop into our lineage. See, foundational Black Americans are not a trend. We're the recorded descendants of U.S. chattel slavery, freedmen rolls, and the Black Native families that merged right here on this soil. Afro-Indigenous? Same bloodline, same land, still FBA lineage. American Indians with U.S. lineage? Distinct tribal nations, connected through history, treaties, and blood. Caribbeans? Your roots are powerful. Arawak, Taino, Maroon, but they are island roots. They do not grow from Mississippi clay or Virginia red soil. So when you step online calling yourselves American Indian and then attack FBAs for not doing the same, that's not solidarity. That's mimicry. And let's get historical for a second. Paper genocide erased entire families of Black Native Americans by rewriting them as colored or Negro. Their tribal names crossed out on government rolls, their lineage buried under bureaucracy. Then the 1980s hit and new birth certificates started printing without race. Erasure 2.0, the only way to survive that was through documentation. Census records, Freedmen's Bureau files, Dawes rolls, our receipts. Now it's 2024, and the federal government just updated race and ethnicity standards again. Black or African American and American Indian or Alaska Native stand side by side, distinct and equal. That clarity protects our claims, reparations, cultural IP, and civil rights enforcement. Lose the distinction, and you lose jurisdiction. That's why the FBA name matters. The Black holds the suffering and survival. The foundational holds the land and labor. You can't delete either without starting another round of erasure. So when Caribbean creators hop on panels saying, "We're Indians too," it's not an invitation, it's an infiltration. You want the sovereignty without the struggle, the treaties without the trail, the recognition without the receipts. And when we don't go along, you get mad because it exposes the cosplay. Let's be honest. You didn't care about American indigeneity until FBAs started tracing their freedmen and tribal lines and reclaiming their paperwork. You saw the shine, not the sacrifice. You watched us clean centuries of dust off our surnames and thought you could borrow the glow. But a hashtag isn't a heritage. While you're busy making think pieces about Tariq Nasheed, we're busy making genealogical maps, building legal frameworks, and aligning our lineage to federal standards. That's the difference. You're performing, we're preserving. And for those of you who think we need to unite under one Blackness, understand, unity without boundaries is just chaos with a drumbeat. You don't unify by stealing, you unify by respecting origin. So no, we're not all American Indians. Some of us are the foundational Black Americans whose ancestors were enslaved and native to this land. We don't have to rename ourselves to feel significant. The soil already knows our name. If that offends you, good. Offense is often just the sound of a truth you tried to hide from yourself.
And so, after carefully listening to the video, here is my deep, critical analysis with a touch of deconstruction. You see, let's delve into the historical construction of the African American. The term African American gained prominence during the civil rights movements and was solidified in the 1980s as a way of restoring dignity to a people whose roots were stolen through slavery. It connected Black Americans to their ancestral homeland, Africa, a symbolic reclamation after centuries of being labeled as Negro, colored, or slaves. However, in this intentional reclamation, something was oversimplified. The term African American assumes that all Black people in the Americas descend directly from the West African slave trade, when in fact the story is much more intricate. Some Black communities existed in the Americas before the arrival of the Europeans. Others came from different parts of the world where dark-skinned, woolly-haired people were indigenous long before colonial borders were drawn. Indigenous Black people all existed before the white people came, right? So we have indigenous Black population in the Americas before the coming of Columbus. Archaeological and historical records point to the presence of dark-skinned indigenous people in the Americas before Columbus. The Olmecs of ancient Mexico, often called the mother of civilization, they are often called mother of civilization of Mesoamerica. They left behind colossal stone heads with distinctly African facial features, wide noses, full lips, and textured hair. While mainstream scholarship debate these features, some historians and geneticists, people who study genetics, have proposed the possibility of early transatlantic contact between Africa and the America centuries before the European invasion. In Northern America, certain tribes such as the Washito, we have the Yamasee, and we have the Black Cherokee have long asserted that they are indigenous Black nation, not descendants of African slaves. Their oral histories, cultural practices, and even land treaties predate the slave era. Yet, through colonization and racial classification laws like the one-drop rule, their distinct identities were erased and replaced with the blanket label, Negro or African. Beyond Africa and the Americas, there are indigenous Black population in many parts of the world who challenge the simplistic idea that Black automatically means African. No, it's not true. First of all, we have the people who come from, or rather we call them the Melanesia, and people from Papua New Guinea. The Melanesians are indigenous to the Pacific Islands and have dark skin, tightly curled hair, and facial features similar to Africans. Yet, they are genetically and culturally distinct, having lived in that region for tens of thousands of years. In Australia, we also find Black people. We call them the Aboriginal Australians and the Torres Strait Islanders, who are among the oldest continuous population on Earth, with dark skin and deep spiritual traditions tied to their land. They are not African immigrants, they are the original people of that continent. Also, where we can find Black people is South Asia. The Dravidian people of southern India and the Adivasis in the Indian subcontinent also exhibit features often associated with Africans, yet they are native to their origins. or rather to their regions. Another place is the Andaman Islands. The Andamanese are among the most genetically isolated people in the world, with dark skin and curly hair, tracing their ancestry to some of the earliest human migrations out of Africa. Well, this Andaman Island, these people are still living in the Stone Age. Up to date, they still live in the Stone Age. And believe me, nobody is allowed to go there. No one is allowed to go to the Andaman Island. And they are also cannibals, you know. They still live in the Stone Age and they are very dark. This should tell you something, that not all black people are African. You see, these examples show that blackness is not confined to Africa, but a global human reality, a reflection of the diversity of the original human family. Now, there's a geopolitical confusion of black identity in America. The confusion around who is African American arises from the colonial framework that seeks to categorize people based on racial appearance rather than lineage or cultural origin. When enslaved Africans were brought to the Americas, they were mixed with indigenous population, Europeans, and other groups. Over centuries, these distinctions blurred, and all dark-skinned people came to be seen as one homogeneous group. And today, in the modern geopolitical narrative, this serves a convenient purpose. It keeps black identity contained within a singular narrative of slavery and dependency, erasing the complexity of indigenous black sovereignty. It also obscures the fact that some black Americans are descendants of the first people of the land, not merely the descendants of enslaved Africans. Again, to say that not all black Americans are African Americans is not to reject Africa. It is to expand the map of blackness. It is to acknowledge that the African diaspora is older, wider, and more complex than the transatlantic slave trade. It is to reclaim the forgotten histories of black nations and people who existed before the colonial imagination drew its lines. Recognizing this truth allows for a more honest conversation about identity, belonging, and reparations. Some black Americans may trace their roots to Nigeria or Ghana, others to indigenous tribes of America, and others still to islands and continents across the world, all connected by shared struggles against colonialism and racism, but their stories are not identical. To conclude, this is what we must understand. Black identity cannot be confined to a geopolitical names. It is older than borders, older than nations, and older than race itself. When we say not all black Americans are African Americans, we call for a reawakening, a recognition that blackness is not a category of oppression, but a worldwide lineage of resilience and creation. The story of black people is not one story, but many, from the deserts of Sudan to the rainforest of Papua, from the Mississippi Delta to the islands of the Pacific. It is a constellation of human experience that transcends geography, empire, and time. And until we learn to tell those many stories, we will remain trapped in someone else's definition of who we black people are. Yes, I like it, and I want you to understand this. Saying that not all black people come from Africa is not to reject Africa, but rather it is to show how much expansive blackness is. Blackness is not just confined to Africa. Africa may be holding the highest population, but blackness is found in so very many places. Madagascar, the islands of the Pacific, we have the Southern America, we have the Northern America, so many places. We have Australia. How did black people get to Australia as long as those other days? It is believed, and it's believed that not all black people are Africans. And yes, it is also believed that there has been contact between the west coast of Africa and the east coast of the Americas. Yeah. I'm glad, and I hope this video becomes of value to you. English is not my first language, excuse me, So I hope you understand. Leave your thoughts on the comment section. Let's hear what you think. Let's hear your understanding. And let's continue this discussion about our blackness. See you in the next one, and stay positive.